yourself and be authentic and be honest and have good values and be, above all, humble.
Welcome to Lincoln Listens First. My name is Angela Rye, and I am so elated to be joined today by our guest, Serena Williams. I know her as the People's Champ. I'm sure many of you all share that same sentiment. You are a dynamic tennis player, a wife, a mom, a daughter, a sister, and you are living in 2020 with the rest of us. How are you doing?
Yeah, well, thanks for that intro. That's an incredible intro, Angela. Thank you so much. I'm doing good. I think everyone right now, we just have to roll with the punches. There's so many things that's happened in 2020 that have been negative. And so now it's like we have to just kind of make ourselves be ready for whatever is next. It's definitely been an interesting and tough year, but I'm still here and I'm going to make the best of that time.
I love that. Still here. And it's a sentiment that so many of us can share with you after everything that's gone on.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the thing that you're the proudest of in your own response to the crises that exist right now?
Well, for me, I really have taken a lot of solace in my spirituality and, reading my Bible and things of that nature. So that's where I've really put my hope and my trust is really in that. And that is really interesting for a lot of people, but it really is one thing that's brought me a tremendous amount of peace and really just waiting and relying on God's kingdom. And so just telling other people how I feel about that has been one thing that I felt the most satisfied about and learning more about it.
So speaking of, spiritual solace, right now we know a lot of people are trying to create safe spaces for themselves, a sanctuary, so to speak. What is your safe space in addition to, taking time to read your word? What else are you doing to create a safe space for you and your family?
So my safe space is really just being around my family, and it can be anywhere. We can be in New York for the Open, or we can be at our house, or we can be somewhere else. For me, that's my safe space. That's where people I really care about on a level that's hard to describe, with my daughter. And so it's been really interesting, but making her feel comfortable. And it's a different world that we're growing up in and that she's growing up in. And so really just making her feel as comfortable as she can as I'm trying to kind of figure out how to be comfortable as well.
Yeah. Speaking of Alexis Jr., I got to see the side of her head a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so amazing. Like, look at you just like glow and like are, so like happy talking about her. What has motherhood taught you? And how difficult has it been to balance motherhood with being like one of the greatest tennis players of all time?
It's been hard. It hasn't been easy at all. Like when I first started, I was like, I want to spend so much time with her and I want to be with her. And then, I just feel like I had to come to a different place where like, okay, she might not remember me being with her for these 3 hours. So maybe I should spend more time on the court, or maybe I should not have so much anxiety walking out on the court. So that has been a real hard place for me to find a balance in. And I feel like I finally am getting there 3 years later.
So I think that it's so important that you have been so transparent about the trials, tribulations, and the joys of motherhood that so many women can relate to. They're like, finally, somebody real. And from the very beginning, you've been that way. One thing in particular that I've learned a lot about recently, Serena, is how Black women, once they take a pregnancy test, it's positive. They're definitely coming into motherhood. Institutional racism almost immediately hits them. Can you talk a little bit about your own birthing experience and some of the challenges you had just being believed as a Black woman?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and you really don't know this until you go through this experience, that Black women in particular, but women of color as well, statistically have a harder time. That people are told and even taught I was told once that someone was at was becoming a doctor, and they were at a very Ivy League school, and one of the professors said, "Well, black people, black women, they're a lot stronger, and they tend to exaggerate." And that's what they're teaching their students that are coming doctors. So that was a really interesting thing to hear and kind of like shocking. But that's a stigma that, you're in this moment where you're having a child and you're the most vulnerable you can be. And having a child is a miracle. It really is. And I think, not every child is guaranteed, and we can see that every day. So it's really important. I wasn't trying to make a statement. I was just speaking out wasn't even speaking out. I was just speaking like, oh, this was my experience. And then come to find out it was so many people that had similar experiences, and they just needed to be heard, and they don't have a voice to be heard.
Is there one lesson from that experience that you would give to, a mother right now who might be in her third trimester and is a little nervous about giving birth? Is there something that you can tell her about advocating for herself or reading up? Is there something you read about where you were like, no, I have to tell you all this isn't right, and I know my body?
Well, I think having that conversation with the doctors ahead of time, like from day one. Now, this is me. This is a miracle. Like, I'm going to be vulnerable. And contrary to what you might think, I'm not as tough as people might say I am in life. But this is my moment. This is my moment where someone needs to take care of me. And if you're not going to be able to do this, let me know now so I can try to find that help. And letting them know the statistics. Don't be afraid to say, this is what happens for people that look like me. This is what happens. I don't want to be a number. Up front, just saying up front how you feel, and every visit reiterating that so they get it in their heads, like, take care of me because this is a child that I'm bringing into this world.
When you think about strength to you, mental toughness and fortitude, I'd love to know, what traits come to mind for you that help to push you to the next level. Like, I know when I see you, I'm like, I see your arms, I see your competitive, fierceness on the court. Like, you do not mess around. But talk about, how else those things show up in your life besides just on the tennis court.
I just think anytime you become a mom, you have to have like this fierce and tough kind of attitude because, it's hard. Especially if you're a working parent, it's definitely hard to do more than one thing. So it's definitely important to be fierce and tough, not for yourself, really for your family.
Absolutely. What is the legacy that you hope to leave for Olympia and for other little Black girls just like her?
Just be yourself and be authentic and be honest and have good values and be above all humble. And I think that humility is one thing that the world is lacking. And having that humble spirit is something that really can make a huge difference.
So Lincoln started this series to ensure that people started listening first. I think we could both attest to the fact that the environment that we currently find ourselves in, people are not really listening to each other. What's one way that you make sure that you're listening first when you come into a room or you're sharing space with someone?
You have to just know when to be quiet. Sometimes you have to just be considerate and say, I'm going to hear what someone has to say, because when you're speaking, you're not learning. You learn most when you're listening.
Is there a moment in recent time where you were like, dang, I should have listened better?
Every day. Oh, my goodness. I should listen to my mom with this. Oh, God, I should have done that. But hindsight is definitely 20/20.
Yeah.
But, but I think everyone has that in their life. We're not perfect, so.
The legendary Serena Williams, I cannot thank you enough for spending this time with us for Lincoln Listens First. I certainly learned a lot from listening to you today. Thank you for being the role model, the legend you are, the Black girl magic you are on and off the court, and for inspiring us all to greatness. I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you for doing this. Thanks, Serena.